Hello all, BL Carter here, affectionately known as Miss B. Stopping in to talk with you all about conflict resolution and hoping that you are working on the pieces to your puzzle one piece at a time. So let's just dig right on in. Conflict resolution. This is something actually that's been coming up as well. And though I know we all have our ways of resolving conflict, the fact that we still have people back and forth fighting with each other, fighting against each other instead of working together, obviously says we have not resolved some conflicts, or we might need some refreshers in how to resolve conflict more successfully. So the first thing I wanted to say was, when you get into an issue or a conflict with someone, obviously it needs to be resolved. In the heat of an argument, you want to go your separate way. You want to be in two different locations, calm down, get rid of the emotion. You can't reason with an angry man, is what the old folks used to tell us. So if your conflict has escalated to the point that both parties are angry and you've got strong emotions flying, you need to separate until you can remove that emotion and talk more reasonably and rationally. And then once that's done, one person calls the other one, or text or email or whatever the case may be, and establish a good time to try to resolve the conflict. What you definitely don't want to do is just show up at somebody's house. I've had this done to me. Just show up at their house. I'm here to talk about, whatever the issue is. Or call them, and as soon as they answer the phone, go in on whatever it is the issue is. Because we all have to get to a point where we're ready to talk about it. I might be ready, but the other party might not be ready. So both parties have to be ready. And ready means that they're open to talking about it and open to some sort of resolution. If you don't make sure that both parties are ready, then it's just going to be a waste of time and probably make the conflict worse, because somebody's going to say the wrong thing, and then it's going to be attitude and and back and forth. The next thing I would say is obviously check your egos at the door. You got to get rid of emotions. You got to get rid of the egos. Check the ego will kill anything you're trying to do big time. So you definitely want to get rid of the egos. Put them on the back burner. Do some meditating, some praying, some fasting, some grounding, whatever work it is you've got to do to get yourself to a point where you have control over your thoughts and your flesh. And then the other party the same thing. So that no matter what they say, short of them hitting you, obviously, then you're going to defend yourself. Or you might not. You might walk away. Who knows? But they can say a whole bunch of stuff and it won't really ruffle your feathers as quickly, because you've checked that ego, you've checked the emotions, you're freshly grounded and spiritualized and motivated and ready to do. And I'm outside, so I've got to be keeping an eye on the vehicles that are passing by and the ones that decide to slow down and stuff like that. I've kind of pulled over somewhere. And then the other thing you want to think about is making sure that you're going to address the issue or the issues. You don't want to have too many issues. If you got 5 things that you're conflicting with someone about, maybe do them one at a time or 2 at a time. Because to go to anybody with a laundry list of stuff is not going to be received well. It's just, if someone came to me with a laundry list of stuff, I'd be like, well, dang, they don't like nothing about me. Why am I even here? Why am I wasting my time? And I'm sure they would feel the same way if I went to them with a laundry list. So you want to do it incrementally, preferably as things occur. You don't want to build up a whole laundry list. Deal with it as it occurs. And so you don't have this laundry list. But when you do get to actually sitting at the table to discuss your issues, Stick with the issues. Stay away from attacking the person. Stay away from attacking their characters and their qualities. If you don't like their character, you can say that without attacking them. You can say, for example, my character might be, I don't know, I smile too much. Yeah, right. No, I don't. And that might be offensive to the person I'm in conflict with. And they can say that, and they can just say, not necessarily they don't like the way I smile, but they could just say I smile more than they're comfortable with. That doesn't necessarily mean it's my issue. It really is their issue. And they're owning their issue, but they're owning it in such a way such that they're not feeling so bad about their issue, and it doesn't attack me. It doesn't make me feel like I'm being attacked and have to defend myself. Because again, the intent is to diffuse the issues between us instead of adding more. So you definitely want to talk about the specific issue and not the person. You don't want to attack them. You don't want to tell them, you're stupid. Why you can't get it? You're stupid. You might need to say it 4 or 5 different ways in order for them to get it. And that's actually part of communication. Effective communication is not just speaking, articulating, but it's making sure the person that you're speaking to is hearing you and understanding, comprehending what you're trying to convey. So if you're speaking and they're not getting it, it could be something going on with them why they're not getting it, or it could be that you're not communicating it or conveying it the right way. So part of effective communication is making sure that the hearer is actually hearing what it is you're trying to say. And what I like to do with that, and what I've taught people to do, is copy back or repeat back what they heard from me. So for example, especially when I'm in front of a group or something, and I say something to them, I give them a directive, or even my kids or whomever it is that I'm talking to. After I say what I'm going to say, I turn around and ask them, now, what did you hear me say? Or what do you understand me to be saying? Or at some point I'll summarize or recap, okay, this is what we came up with. This is where we are. So that we're both on the same page as to what information I conveyed to them. And then I can be we can both be on the same page as to what information they've conveyed to me. So you definitely want to look at your communication. You want to stay away from absolutes and be as truthful as possible. Absolutes are things like, if you're arguing with your spouse about the toothpaste, and once you squoze the toothpaste in the middle of the tube instead of at the end of the tube, and he goes smack off on you or she, saying something like, you always doing that. Well, that's not true. First of all, it's not true, because it's a one time, or it's and it's not a routine thing that you do. You just happen, you were rushing or whatever, I don't know, you grabbed it the wrong way. But always in and of itself is an absolute, and that means there is no time ever that you have not done it. And if that's not true, then it's not true. And what it does when we use absolutes, because people do this a lot, oftentimes people will say, you always do this. Every time I turn around, you're doing that. You do this, you do this, you do this. Instead of saying you do this a lot, or you do this more often than not, or you do it more than I'm comfortable with, or, something like that, they'll say always. And that in and of itself is not true. And it immediately puts the other person on the defense, because they don't hear anything else you're saying, because they heard you just come out your face with something incorrect. And so that's where their mind is. Their mind is stuck on the fact that you're starting this out with incorrect information. So you definitely want to make sure you're not using absolutes and that you're being truthful. And of course, the emotions, I said that, you bring them down. Tone is important. Tone is very important. If you come, you all have set your meeting, and let's say your meeting is at, Chick-fil-A, and you meet at Chick-fil-A. But if you've got an attitude and it shows all over your face, and you can hear it in your voice, I'm not going to be receptive. Or, same thing, me with, if you, the listener, if I got an issue with you and we meet at Chick-fil-A and I come at you and I'm all like this, and I plop my purse down and I plop down, that's tone and body language. You're not going to be receptive to what I've got to say. So now I've got to spend the next 10 minutes undoing the damage I did just in those first 10 seconds. Excuse me. So we got all of that preliminary stuff out the way. And then so the next thing you want to do is identify the source of the conflict. What exactly is the issue? And oftentimes when we get into conflict, again, we've got all the emotions and stuff flying. So you've got to burrow down through all of that. You can't say, because you call me ugly. That's my issue. You call me ugly. Well, I called you ugly. Why? And then the response, whatever the response might be. And you keep going back and forth until you can burrow down to what the root cause was or what the actual issue is. And the issue might just be, I don't like the way you cut your hair. For whatever reason, you got your hair cut and it just looks awful. And instead of me saying, don't cut your hair like that no more, it doesn't quite work for you or it doesn't work for me, whatever, I said you look ugly. So I went from a temporary mistake of how you cut your hair to your entire face that you have no control over being ugly and undesirable and unwanted and unappealing. And those kinds of things will kill conflict resolution quick. So you definitely want to identify the source. Then you want to clarify the individual perceptions in the conflict. What did I understand you to mean when you said I look ugly? What did you understand me to mean when I said your hair, I don't like the way you cut your hair? Identify each person's perception. What did they hear? What did they see? What are they perceiving? What are they internalizing? What are they comprehending? In the interaction. And then, of course, you have to look beyond the incident. You have to look beyond the incident. Nothing ever gets resolved if you're stuck on the incident. And by that, I mean something I used to tell my kids all the time: hear with your heart. So put everything aside. When, that sibling rivalry, they fighting each other back and forth or whatever. And I would say, ignore for a moment, just a moment, what's going on right now. Think about who your sister really is. Is she the kind of person that usually does or says XYZ? And the child would say, no, she's not. I said, okay, that's your first clue. Something is wrong. Because if this conflict you're having now has to do with her doing something different than she usually does, that tells you something else is going on. So your first duty is to identify what's going on. And if it's her behavior changing, if she's coming into a new person that you don't like, that's one thing. But, she could be dealing with stuff. She could have, girls, moody and cycles and all that other stuff. She could be on her cycle and not feeling well. She could have somebody sick. She could have, struggles in school, whatever the case may be. And that's a temporary thing. But you got to listen. You got to get beyond the argument that you had to find out if that's really characteristic of that person or if that's a one-time situation. And then the other thing I tell them, and not just them, but other people, you have to listen with an intent to hear and understand. If we're listening to hear what they say, and before they can get the statement out their mouth good, we've already formulated our response. A, do we know that we heard what they were trying to say? Do we know that they were effective in conveying what they were trying to convey? No, because we didn't get a chance to repeat back what we heard and understood. We just immediately took whatever we heard and ran with it. And B, do we know that, B, we've missed the rest of what they were saying because we heard one portion and our minds went a different direction and we didn't hear the rest of it. People do this a lot. I see this a lot. Might start off saying someone starts off saying something and then get halfway through and the other one automatically wants to assume what they're going to say and flies off at the handle instead of letting the first person finish out what they're going to say and then get clarity. Did you just say, XYZ? Okay. Breathe. Pause. Digest it a moment. Think of your response and then respond. You can respond more. Intelligent is not the appropriate word, but for lack of a better word at this particular moment, I'll say you can respond more. It's kind of getting warm in here. More intelligently. And then once you guys get to that, then you can start talking about options of how to resolve it. Start thinking about ways in which you can make it a win-win situation for everybody, for both parties. How do we fix this? How do we deal with the conflict at hand? How do we deal with the issue at hand where it's a win-win situation for both of us? And both of you start, brainstorming, if you will, on various resolutions. And you keep going down the list of resolutions until you guys get to something that sounds doable for both of you. Or it might even be three of you, who knows. But you just go down the list. One might say, well, you can stop yelling at me. The other one might say, well, when my door is closed, you can knock before you come in. And the other, and they can just go back and forth. And once they've gotten a list of potential solutions, and it might be 2 or 3 things in there to help resolve, then they can say, well, okay, I can do that. Yes, I can knock on your door before I come in. Yes, I can stop yelling at you. The other one might say, I need you to stop calling me at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the second one might say, no, I can't stop calling at 5 in the morning because I know you have to get up to be at school on time. And so I'm going to continue to call you at 5 o'clock because even though I'm mad, you're my sister and I love you and I want you to be on time for school. And the first one might say, okay, well, you know what? That's doable. I don't really like it, but it's doable. I'll accept it because I know you're doing it out of love. Great. And then you want to think of hindrances and barriers to your resolutions that you're coming up with. You've got these resolutions, but are they actually doable? And both of you agreeing to them, but are they doable? Is it reasonable to expect that I won't come in your room without knocking on your door? Is that really doable? Can I do that? Because if you agree to something that's not doable, that you can't do, then you've got the conflict all over again, and then you have distrust because A, we had the conflict, and B, now I can't trust your word because you agreed to something and you didn't follow through on your word. So think of the barriers definitely, and then you write out an agreement. I will no longer come in your room without knocking on the door. I will no longer call you at 5 in the morning. Or no, I will continue to call you at 5 in the morning. I will no longer yell at you. And I used to do this with my kids all the time. Make them do little contracts back and forth to each other. And when you're drawing out your little agreement, you repeat. Do a summary, if you will, or repeat whatever it is you guys talked about and what you agreed on. Not so much of what you talked about, but more so what you've agreed upon. We've agreed that, so it's very clear on both ends what the goal was, how you're going to handle it going forward, so there's no issue when it comes down to a week from now and someone does the same thing or does something different than what you've agreed to. You can pull out your agreement. You can double check and make sure that is what we agreed to, and then come back and say, well, I thought we agreed that we weren't going to do, you weren't going to bust in my room without knocking on the door. Oh, my bad. I've done it so long, it's a habit, you got to work with me. Or, you know what, you're right. I accept my punishment, whatever it is, or whatever discipline you want to hand out, their peers. So, and then finally, was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, yeah, execution. You want to spell out in your agreement how you're going to execute the resolution. Because again, if it's a matter of making sure there are no barriers in place, etc., you definitely want to spell out the execution. For example, let's say if one sister borrowed $5 from the other sister, and this has been their issue back and forth, and they're finally down to resolving it. Well, spell out in your agreement how the execution of the resolution is going to occur. First sister, the one that owes the money, says, I will pay you $1 a week for 5 weeks until it's paid. Second sister agrees, okay, and I will pay you in cash, when I get my allowance or pay my check or whatever it is, I get my paycheck. Or it might be, I will transfer the money into your bank account or your Cash App account or whatever it is these kids are using this day. Whatever it is, spell out the execution. So everyone is very clear what's supposed to happen, who's doing what, and how you're going to do differently going forward. And that difference should be something that both parties have agreed upon. And then, you shouldn't have that issue again. But then you can turn around and do what? Once you're successful with little small conflicts like that, it becomes almost second nature for you to resolve your bigger conflicts that way. And the more that we're able to resolve our conflicts, the less negative energy and baggage we're carrying with us, which makes us lighter, which makes us nicer people. We might be able to smile more. Some people, I don't know, from New York, we don't smile. That's something that's been in my family for the longest, that smile thing. I've heard it from the time I was an itty bitty girl about, why we never smile. But yeah, bottom line, the objective is to get people to resolve conflicts, resolve differences of opinion. And there may be times where you can't come to a resolution. There may be times when this one is over here, this one is over here, and there is no, once you've gone down this whole process and both parties have listed or, have thought of potential solutions, but the solution is not the other person is not in agreement with the solution. It just may be one of those things where, okay, well, you know what? We just have to agree to disagree. This is going to be a conflict with us forever. So how are we going to handle it? Well, we're sisters. So that means this is just something we won't bring up anymore. We just need to let it go. I love you. I forgive you. Forgive me. It is what it is. You have your position. I have mine. How do we make sure we don't cross each other's paths in this particular area again? And we do us. And we don't bring it up again. It's, throw it and cast it into the sea of forgetfulness. Cast it into the sea of forgetfulness. But you don't get to cast it until you've discussed it. And I think that's one of the things people miss when they tell folk, well, let's just agree to disagree. Well, you never discuss the issue. You don't know. You guys might be able to agree. Or just get over it. Just, be done with it or whatever. Again, if the issue wasn't discussed, people still have negative feelings about it. So have the discussion. More often than not, things are agreeable, but you still have egos, attitudes, and emotions playing in there. And people can't get to a point of just determining whether stuff is, if it can be resolved or not. So that's just my quick spill on conflict resolution. Because I've been seeing it a lot. I see it more often. And as a parent, I see it all the time because I've got multiple kids. How Bill Cosby, put it, you're not a parent until you have more than one child. Well, I'm a parent. I've got more than one. So, I see the conflicts. And thankfully, this is something that's been, I'd say, effective more often than not with mine. And just, in my life, using it and passing it down to other people. And actually, mine took it and went a step further with it. And they were the mediators, if you will, the whole time that they were in school, from elementary school on through middle school and high school. they were known as the mediators, because when people in their groups would have conflicts, they would take them through some of these same steps that I used to walk them through in resolving their conflicts with each other. And so that's a reputation that they gained. But just try it, try it in all your relationships. But, start it out on the small stuff, because it's easier to do the small stuff, and it's easier to establish the pattern of how the conflict resolution should occur. And then when you get to the bigger stuff in life, it will just be second nature, and things will flow. We got to be able to resolve conflict. If we don't resolve conflict, we go through life with unnecessary negative energy, unnecessary baggage, whether we believe it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, it's there. We wind up severing relationships unnecessarily. We wind up quitting jobs unnecessarily. We wind up, just getting ourselves into positions, and oftentimes, if you want to think from a Christian perspective, walking out or walking away from or turning down something that was supposed to be a blessing to us, or that we were supposed to have, because we had a little argument, and we can't get along because you stole my shirt and I'm mad at you, and we're just stuck in ourselves with that shirt. And truth be told, my sister's supposed to be my best buddy in life, but because she stole my shirt and I got attitude and ego that I don't want to let go, now I've walked away from my sister. And 5 years down the road, 2 years down the road, I may need her, and she may be the only one who can truly help me. But our relationship is in disrepair because of some stupid little disagreement. I shouldn't say stupid, but because of a disagreement that we should have been able to resolve. So that being the case, let me know what you think. Comments are appreciated, of course. Some like and share and all that other good stuff. If you like the content that you're seeing so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the bell, the little notification bell there, just right next to the subscribe button, so that you can get notices as I post. And I try to do a lot of my content every few days, just because that's just the way my schedule works. And then I post them when I can. Might be 2 or 3 a week. It might be 4 or 5 a week if a lot's going on, but more so 2 or 3 a week. So just look forward to it, and I appreciate your time. Thanks, and we will catch you on the next one. Remember, work that puzzle one piece at a time. The objective is to do what? When it's time to check out of here, to have as much of your puzzle put together as possible, as few empty pieces, loose pieces floating around as possible. Be blessed.